Ravens flock. The flock rundown is the place to be.
Motionless brainwaves attempt to swim their way to sense, can't tame the untamed.
What's up, Ravens fans? Welcome into a live edition of the Flock Rundown. Got a very special guest on. I know a lot of you guys already know Ingraven. If you don't, all his links are in the description. He just passed 80,000 subscribers, so congrats on that. He's got most consistent news, quickest to the news, always bringing quality, good energy, and was one of the first people to show me love when I first started this channel too. So I'm very appreciative of that. And what's up, Ingraven? How are you, man?
I'm good. Same old stuff, man. But I appreciate you having me on, and it's nice to see you just continue to do your thing, man. So you've been killing it. Your consistency is really good too. So like you want it. No, man, you got it, man. You got it for sure, man. But no, I appreciate you for sure, and I'm glad that stuff is going really good for you here, man.
Yeah, man, I appreciate that. Thanks for coming on. Let's dive into some news. We got some Ravens news. We got some division news. We'll start with the division news. So Russell Wilson is no longer on the Steelers. He just signed a 1 year up to $21 million deal with the Giants and $10.5 million guaranteed. A lot of people are now saying that pretty much guarantees Aaron Rodgers, if he decides to come back, to go to the Steelers. So what's your thought? We also got Jameis Winston moving over to the Giants too. So they have two former AFC North quarterbacks. But what's your thoughts on the quarterback changes in the North and a potential Aaron Rodgers addition to the Steelers? Does that move the needle at all?
I like it. The Russell Wilson move. I love it because I want the Steelers to be as bad as possible, especially at the quarterback position. Like, you could have all the wide receivers in the world, which they do got some nice ones. I really like DK Metcalf, and then you got George Pickens too. He's nice. Pat Frymouth, he's good as well at tight end. But I'm hoping that all of the options that the Steelers have, that they all just crumble. One of those options was Justin Fields. It said that they were talking to him about possibly coming back, and they actually offered him a deal. But he ended up accepting the deal from the Jets, and obviously it'll be a better opportunity there for him to actually really be a starter. Because they said that when he talked to the Steelers, they said you might be a starter, maybe, but it's none guaranteed. So he's like, you know what? Nope, not taking the risk. Bye. And then it's, of course, the whole Aaron Rodgers thing. I'm hoping that either he retires or the Vikings change their mind, or somebody just comes out the woodworks and be like, you know what, Aaron Rodgers, no, come to us, and he doesn't go to the Steelers. And then with Russell Wilson, it was said that he was a possible option for them too, but obviously that's no more. So I'm just loving seeing these quarterbacks get away from the Steelers. Now, like you just mentioned, Aaron Rodgers to Pittsburgh is a real possibility. I'm still hoping that it doesn't happen, and either he retires or somebody else signs him. But I think that would actually be a good move for them, because they got to show up the defense a little bit. Really just getting healthy. I think most of all, TJ Watt down the stretch, he was not the same TJ Watt. He got a little banged up and whatnot. But Aaron Rodgers, if Aaron Rodgers or George Pickens, you give Aaron Rodgers DK Metcalf, and like that's not, and then there's Calvin Austin too. He's nice as well. So Steelers got a nice little offense, man. So, and Aaron Rodgers, like, he would be in a similar situation though. The only downfall of him going to the Steelers for them would be that offensive line. That offensive line, it ain't nothing nice. So he ain't the Aaron Rodgers of old where he can run around and scramble like that. So if they can get the offensive line fixed, then they could continue to be a problem. But if it's the same old offensive line, then it could end up being just the same old story with Pittsburgh. But the last thing I will say about it is that with Aaron Rodgers and the possibility of him going to the Pittsburgh Steelers, it would just be another a 1 year deal type of thing, or maybe 2 year deal. But it just wouldn't give the Steelers anything long term at the quarterback position. So that could be a good thing for the Baltimore Ravens as well, and really just the rest of the division, because Steelers have been in this QB limbo for a long time, ever since Ben Roethlisberger retired. They had guys like Kenny Pickett, they had Mason Rudolph, they had Devin Hodges, They had
Mitch
Russell
Trubisky.
Wilson. Oh yeah, Mr. Trubisky too. Yeah, that's another one. Russell Wilson, Justin Fields, and so they quarterbacks been all over the place. So now they're getting ready to have another one potentially. We'll see if it ends up being Aaron Rodgers. If it is, cool, man. I think that would actually give them a nice little boost as far as the team. But I guess we'll see soon.
Yeah, I definitely think it would boost them. I guess, and they do have good weapons. I guess what doesn't get me that fearful is he had great weapons just on the Jets, like Garrett Wilson, bringing Devontae Adams, Breece Hall at running back. I would argue almost that those weapons could be better than Pitt. And like Jets offensive line, not great. Steelers offensive line, not great. I don't know. It is a wild card scenario though, right? Like I would be, there is a higher ceiling if they got Rodgers to just go on this crazy run if he just locks in and they're just playing good ball. Like I think that's the wild card aspect of it, but I'm not like super concerned regardless. I still think the Ravens have a much better team, but I just wanted to get your thoughts on the division shakeup. Let's move on to some Ravens news. So today, the Ravens added some corner depth, much needed corner depth. We were looking pretty thin there, and signed Chidobe Awuzie, and veteran corner, 29 years old. He has played on the Cowboys, was their second corner, I think, and then was the number one corner on the Bengals for a couple of years. He's been battling some injuries recently, but we get him for the vet minimum after he signs a pretty solid deal with the Titans. So it's obviously pretty low risk move. But what's your thoughts on this signing in particular, and then also just the Ravens corner room in general heading into the draft?
I like it, especially for all the reasons that you just mentioned. The biggest one being it's veteran minimum. He got cut from the Tennessee Titans, so they still got to pay him $7.5 million. So Ravens just signing him for the vet minimum. Yeah, and recently he has had some injuries. That's true, but it is super, super, super low risk. Over the course of his career, he started in 81 games, so he's been a starter a lot. So he brings that experience there. But with him, it's like one of those things where the Baltimore Ravens, it's a good move. And it's a move that it gives you a starter. It makes your depth that much better. But you still don't have to stop here. It ain't like, all right, Ravens got Cheeto. All right, we set at cornerback now. No, you still got options via the draft. You still got options via free agency as well. You could still add another veteran corner. With his recent injury history, I think the Ravens will be smart to continue to add at the cornerback position. And they will. They're going to draft corner. The Ravens always drafting like 80 corners every draft. So that ain't going to be no thing. But obviously, when they take a corner, I think that that could tell us a lot about how they feel about their secondary. But I like the move. We obviously got Marlon Humphrey, who he did his thing last year. I mean, he's been a really, really good player for the Baltimore Ravens when he's been healthy. I know 2 years ago he was dealing with health issues, but last year he was back. And he showed, like Marlon also showed that he got some hands now too. Because that has been something that he struggled with his whole career. He couldn't catch for nothing. But last year he was catching everything. So that was beautiful to see. Nate Wiggins. Now Marlon Humphrey, he gotta pass them hands to Nate Wiggins. Because Nate Wiggins, he doesn't try too many picks, man. He could cover, he could tackle, he could do all that stuff. He just gotta start catching the ball, and we'll be in great position. But we got two good corners already. Outside of Cheeto, we got TJ Tampa. And with TJ Tampa, there's a big unknown with him. But we just don't know what he's gonna bring to the Baltimore Ravens yet on a professional level, because we just haven't really seen him out there like that. Been on some special teams, but he spent a lot of time on injury reserve, a lot of time just not in the games at all. So there's a lot of unknowns. And then there's Jalen Armour-Davis. With Jalen Armour-Davis, the Ravens, they love his potential. They love his size. They love his speed. But the one thing that they don't love about him is the injuries. They have continued to keep him around. He was somebody that I was 1,000,000% sure that last year that both him and who was the cornerback that he got? The Marion Williams, Pepe Williams.
Yeah,
I was for sure that both of them were getting cut last year. But they kept Jalen Armour-Davis around. Again, they did cut Pepe, but they kept Jalen Armour-Davis. I was surprised. I said, wow. But again, there was the injuries still. So I don't think, like with him, that they'll put much, if any, trust in him at all moving forward, to really have a solidified role as a cornerback with the Baltimore Ravens. Like, all right, you're going to be our other outside corner. All right, you're going to be a star. I don't think they'll do that with Jalen Davis at all because of the injuries. With TJ Tampa, we'll see. But when you bring in somebody like a Cheeto, then that does give you more flexibility with just how you construct your team. So now when the draft comes in about a month, they got plenty of options on what they can do there. There's still going to be plenty of vets out there in free agent. I'm surprised Asante Samuel Jr. ain't get signed yet. But there's still going to be plenty of options out there via free agency. As far as their cornerback depth right now, they did get better. And I do feel like Cheeto is also an upgrade from Brandon Stevens as well. But one of the biggest similarities and one of the reasons I think the Ravens really signed him is because he fits exactly what the Baltimore Ravens love from their corners, and that's just corners that can really be physical, man. And Cheeto is that. He's a corner that ain't afraid to come up and lay somebody out. He ain't afraid to come up and hit nobody. And hey, that was Brandon Stevens too. Brandon Stevens was a very physical corner as well. But obviously we know he just couldn't get his head turned around. But with Cheeto, that won't be nearly as big of an issue like it was for Brandon Stevens. So I'm just looking forward to it, because if he does end up being a starter, it's not like he's going to be, I mean, they're going to go at him, of course, because when you look at the Ravens secondary, you think about a Marlon Humphrey, you think about a Nate Wiggins, you think about Kyle Hamilton, if he in the slot or whatnot, then you think about Cheeto. It's like, all right, who are you going to go at? Most people would pick, all right, we're going to go at Cheeto. So he don't have to be ready, because they're going to go his way for sure. But he's an upgrade from what we had with Brandon Stevens last year. And when you think about just how great that defense was after week 10 with Brandon Stevens, even though he struggled literally from very beginning of the year to all the way to the end of the year, but overall the defense was still great. With them upgrading that position, whether it ends up being Cheeto or whether it ends up being somebody else, that can make an even bigger difference in a positive way for Baltimore Ravens defense overall.
Yeah, I completely agree. There's a couple people in the chat saying your mic's crackling a little bit. I don't know if you want to move the aux or something. It's all good. We can hear you, but it's just like crackling a little every couple seconds. But
I'll change it out there.
No, you're straight. Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think this is a great move. I also, to your point, think that this alleviates a lot of pressure from needing to draft a corner in the first round, not necessarily like we had to draft one in the first round, but there was some pressure to draft one at least in the first 2 rounds. And now the Ravens always love to fill, 98% of their needs so that they can just go draft best player available in the draft and not have to worry about reaching for a corner that maybe they shouldn't take at 27 or whatever. So I think this definitely take some pressure off of that situation as well. I'm cool with the signing, and for a vet minimum, I mean, how can we complain about that? I still don't think they're done. I made a video yesterday on Asante Samuel Jr. I know he's not as physical of a corner, but the fact that he's still sitting out in free agency, I really feel like he would get like under $5 or $4 million, like a super cheap deal. We would have a low cap hit on that and just add him to the room, man. Add him to the room. I think that would be a great addition and a stacked corner room. And then you're super free in the draft. You got a lot of depth there. Let's say maybe Awuzie gets hurt or something in camp, and we got to go a different direction. You never know. Like he's battled a lot of injuries, so I'm trying to bring in as many corners as possible.
Oh yeah. Especially if that would definitely give them a lot of even more flexibility. They got a Asante Samuel Jr. too. Like they would be. I wouldn't be mad at that at all. I wouldn't be mad at that at all, because that would just make them that much more like just ready for everything. Ready for injuries, ready for depth, ready for all these wide receivers that we getting ready to go up against, just ready for it all.
100%. All right, let's shift gears a little bit to the tight end room. So you good?
Oh yeah. I'm good. I'm just
switching out the mic.
I'm fixing the setup real quick.
Yeah. All right. I got you. So yeah, let's shift gears to the tight end room, man. So seems like we're keeping Mark Andrews. I mean, you never know. I guess, drafts coming up, there could be a trade offer that blows them away. But since they paid that $4 million roster bonus, the expectations are most likely he's playing out his final year of his contract. And I just wanted to get your thoughts on this tight end room this season. Like, how do the roles look? Let's just assume Mark stays. Like obviously we can't predict a trade at this point. So if the tight end room is exactly as it's been, Mark, Isaiah Likely, Charlie Kohler, what do those roles look like? Do they change at all? Or are they going to be similar to how they were last year? I personally would like to see Isaiah Likely get more of an opportunity to shine, more targets, more just become basically the Ravens starter or main tight end. And not to say that Mark isn't still going to be used at a high level. I think he's still a great red zone threat. I think his chemistry with Lamar is not replaceable. Lamar has great chemistry with Likely and Andrews, but I'm curious as if those roles shift at all this season. If they're still all on the team, is Andrews still that lead guy, or do we start seeing a lot more Isaiah Likely? And then next year, are the Ravens, in your opinion, going to keep Isaiah Likely and kind of move forward with him, or are we moving forward with a totally different tight end room? Because they're all free agents. So we got a question of this year and their roles, and then also like, what does next year look like with this tight end room?
Yeah, that's a really, really good question. You can hear me, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
man.
you're
Hopefully
good.
no
You're
more.
good. Oh, way better. Yeah.
So you try to switch it up, and then stuff it goes haywire. It's all good though, man. As far as the tight end room, Mark Andrews, I really do believe if Mark Andrews stays, then he's going to continue to be the tight end one. I don't see any scenario where the Ravens are like, all right, Mark Andrews, you're staying up, but you're going to be tight end too. You're going to be back up to Isaiah Likely. Reason being because I think they already showed us that that's just simply not going to go down. They showed us that 2 years ago. 2 years ago when Mark Andrews, he was out for what was it, like 6 weeks? I forgot how long it was.
Yeah, something like that.
And Isaiah Likely, he had to step up. And I remember back then, I'm like, oh, because the only time we had really seen Isaiah Likely balling was in the preseason, like a year before that. But then in regular season, it's like, oh, okay, he's straight, but we ain't see that Isaiah Likely yet. So I was a little worried. I was like, I don't know. I think we should sign because I felt like it lined up perfectly because that was around the time when Zach Ertz, he had just got cut and he was a free agent. So I'm thinking like, oh man, it's perfect time. And Mark Andrews is out. We could sign Zach Ertz while Mark Andrews is out. We could still have Isaiah Likely and Charlie Kohler. But that will give us a veteran who we can trust. We know he done played in every type of game, Super Bowl champ, all that good stuff. All right, we'll be straight if we do that. But the Ravens didn't. They rolled Isaiah Likely and he balled out. Isaiah Likely went crazy with it. Him and Lamar's chemistry, like you were just talking about, it was through the roof. It was just so great to see. But then AFC Championship game, they're like, oh, Mark Andrews, he came back. And right then and there, Mark Andrews hadn't played a game in like a month and a half. And Isaiah Likely had been hot. He was going crazy with it. But they forced him up to be the starter. They tried to fix something that wasn't broken with Isaiah Likely to just get Mark back in the game. And we get it. Like Lamar and Mark obviously got a crazy connection like you talked about as well. But it just kind of messed up the flow of things in that year in the AFC Championship. And we obviously lost, and you know the rest of the story. So that showed us like, hey, despite Mark having been out for the past month and a half, despite while Mark was out, Isaiah Likely been going off for the past month and a half. Mark Andrews is still the guy. So then fast forward to the following season, which was last year. Beginning of the year, Mark Andrews dealing with some injuries. He's active though, but it was looking like, even when you looked at the numbers early on, like even from that first game, Isaiah Likely was going crazy. And I was thinking, oh yeah, okay, so the Ravens see it. They're going to make Isaiah Likely the focal point at tight end, and Mark Andrews will take sort of a back seat. Obviously, Ravens, they use both tight ends. They really use all three tight ends. But those two tight ends, they're going to get a lot of opportunities. So I was thinking, all right, Isaiah Likely going to be taking over. But Ravens said, hold on. And I remember there was an interview where Mark, he had gone through his first game to where he hadn't had a reception throughout the whole game. I think it was against the Cowboys, but I'm not 100% sure. But they interviewed him and they were like, hey, Mark, like, hey, what's going on? How you feeling about it and whatnot? And he said, my time will come. I'm being patient with it, but my time will come. And it did, because for the rest of the year, like Mark Andrews was going crazy. extremely productive. He was just going wild with it, making a lot of clutch catches, making a lot of plays. And again, him and Lamar's chemistry is there. It's been there since 2018, and it has just continued to get better and better and better and better. So he was amazing for the Ravens last year. So again, that was more evidence, though, that the Ravens are like, look, we love Isaiah Likely. He can get high, he can make plays, but Mark Andrews is still the guy. So that's why I think even if Mark Andrews does stay this year, then I think that they will continue to have him be tight end one, and they will not allow Isaiah Likely to take over that tight end one spot yet. You also asked about next year, because next year, that's when I think everything changes. Now with the Ravens, they do like to wear, they like to do things a year early a lot of times instead of a year late. When it comes to signing contract extensions with players, if they plan on re-signing that player, they like to get it done early. And for some players, some key players, if they don't feel like they're going to get a contract extension done with them, they like to move on from them a year early, try to trade them, get something for them. A lot of times, if they can, instead of getting just a comp pick. Now with Mark Andrews, I know we still waiting to see what's official. I've said it a couple of times that I'm not 100% sure that Mark Andrews stays on the Ravens. I'm not fully convinced that he's going to continue to be a Raven, and I won't be until like a week after the draft, because he could get traded on draft night, but then after the draft is settled, like right after, teams might be like, all right, we didn't get that tight end that we wanted. And then they could be like, you know, hey, Ravens, what you want from Mark Andrews? So I think it's still a chance that he could get moved, but we'll see. So I won't be convinced until a week after the draft, and or until Eric DeCosta comes out and like stamps it for sure. Like, you know, Mark Andrews is going to be on this team, but he would have to say that after the draft too, because I ain't gonna believe nothing that he says now leading up into the draft. Because you know, Eric DeCosta, he try to play those mind games. So yeah, but next year, as far as next year, I do think that they're gonna stick with Isaiah Likely. Isaiah Likely, in my opinion, I think he will be more expensive than if they were to keep a Mark Andrews. Because this will be Isaiah Likely, whether it's with the Ravens or it ended up being somewhere else. But if it's with the Ravens, wherever he goes, it's going to be his second contract. Yeah. And you know, Isaiah Likely, like, he's a baller, man. Isaiah Likely, he's nice. And for as much chemistry that Mark Andrews has with Lamar Jackson, Isaiah Likely ain't too far behind. He really not. And Lamar,
100%.
Yeah. Yep. Lamar has shown, like, you know, like it could be 4 defenders around Mark Andrews. If Lamar think he could get it to him, he's gonna try to get it to him, and it has happened before where he has got to him with 4 defenders around. But Isaiah Likely, he's right there too. Like, you know, the whole Lamar little fadeaway, the look away, and where he knows, oh yeah, that's touchdown. Oh yeah, that's going to Isaiah Likely. He got it, and I'm so glad, man, because I remember when he first started doing those. I remember thinking, oh my goodness, it would be so sad if somebody dropped one of those.
yeah, right. That would suck.
That would have been bad, but thank goodness nobody did, because Isaiah Likely caught a couple of those, and Rashad Bateman did too. They caught all of them. But I think the following year that they're gonna roll with Isaiah Likely
and let Mark walk.
Yeah. Because I mean, that would be they could franchise tag him and do a tag in trade, but I don't think they will go through all of that. I think they will just let him walk, because they're not gonna pay both of them. Because Mark, even though he'll be a year older, he's still gonna command a good amount of money because he's still a really good tight end. I know we know what happened.
Evan Ingram just got like 12 million, 12, 13 million. They're around similar age, and I think Andrews even had way more touchdowns last year. So, I mean, yeah, Andrews is definitely, it's not going to be super cheap. But like you said, too, I think Isaiah Likely, his value is going to be quite high just due to his age. Unless he doesn't have a great year this year, then it does change, right? Like let's say Mark, to your point earlier, is tight end 1, prime Mark Andrews. Isaiah is just like, you know, here and there. Not that Isaiah can't be that, but I'm just saying, just off of targets and production, stat-wise, he has a normal year. Then Isaiah's contract could be lower. Maybe the Ravens could even like suppress his market value by not giving him a ton of opportunity this year. I don't know if they're thinking that deep, but I'm just saying, if Mark balls out this year and Isaiah doesn't have a better season, I don't know if his contract numbers are through the roof next year.
Now that's real right there because that happens a lot with
Yeah.
NFL teams. They will keep your numbers low so they can keep your value even lower. So they can try to get you at a discount price or whatnot. Because it's a dirty game. It's a dirty game. It's a dirty business.
Business. Yeah.
Hopefully the Ravens don't do anything like that with Isaiah Likely. But yeah, we're gonna see. It's and to Charlie Cola. I feel like with him right now, like I feel like they could keep him for a crazy low amount. Because he's not heavily involved in the passing game. He's not gonna be racking up a bunch of numbers, anything like that, but they do appreciate his ability. He does catch everything that's thrown his way. And he do get a little bit of yak. He ain't no crazy fast, anything like that. But when he catches the ball, he catches it and he'll get upfield a little bit. But his run blocking is what they really, really love him for. He's sort of like a bit quicker version of a healthy Nick Boyle. Very, very physical, tight end that can catch, but that he'll knock somebody out too in the run game. So I think right now his value for them, they can get him at a super, super cheap rate when it is time to re-up with him.
Yeah, I agree. All right, let's shift gears a little bit away from this tight end room. We're going to head to offensive line. So what's your thoughts as it stands right now? Let's just go there. As it stands right now, we lost McCary, we lost Josh Jones, we re-signed Ben Cleveland. It seems like we brought back Ronnie, obviously. That was the biggest free agent move we've had. It seems like tackles are definitely set, at least for the next 2 years, with Ronnie at left, Roger at right. Linderbaum obviously not going anywhere. He's our center. The guards is the big debate, is Falele seems to be kind of locked in at right guard just based off his playing time last year. We'll see. He did improve throughout the year. I definitely thought he got better. I don't know if he's going to be the Ravens' long-term answer there. He's a free agent next year too, unrestricted free agent. So it's not, Falele's not locked up. And and then Voorhees is the lead at left guard right now because we don't really have a lot of other options unless you want to say it's Ben Cleveland. I mean, we just don't have a lot of competition there. So I personally would like the Ravens, whether that's through free agency as the offseason goes or just attacking in the draft, just to add competition to that guard room because I'm really kind of concerned. Not that they couldn't take a leap, Voorhees and Falele, and become better because last year was their first. I mean, Voorhees didn't even start the whole year, but it was Falele's first year of starting as a full time, and Voorhees' first NFL action at all. So it's kind of, I don't want to beat him up too much, but we're trying to win a Super Bowl here. You know what I mean? Like we need to protect Lamar and we need to open running lanes up consistently for Henry. Like the offensive line should not be the weak point of this team. If anything, it should be like the best part of this team. So I really want to add competition there. But what are your overall thoughts just as it stands with the guard play? Let's say Voorhees and Falele have to get that opportunity, or are you on kind of where I'm at where we need to add more?
Oh, no, I would be all for adding more. I think with them signing, them re-signing Ben Cleveland, I think that let us know, like, hey, Ravens are. I feel like he's like a fallback option for them. Like he's somebody that, all right, we're gonna try to draft certain guards or whatnot. Everybody, some people that they got on their big board and whatnot. But if all else fails, then we got Ben Cleveland for some competition in this room. But I do see them, whether it's through the draft, whether it's through free agency, still bringing in even more competition at guard, but also bringing in a backup at right guard. I don't think there's going to be any competition at right guard. I think they'll say that there's going to be competition, but like you mentioned, like Falele seemed like he's a lock for that. And I do think with the Ravens, again, it's a business. It's a business. And sometimes business moves are made. One thing that Pat McCarry was the best option at left guard last year. Maybe not, but I think Ravens were sort of playing a long game with him, with Brandon Stevens, to guys to where they were technically starters. They did struggle quite a bit. They were starters, but the Ravens felt like, all right, we can get by with them, even though they are probably some of the weak spots on the team. But I think the Ravens were thinking long-term as far as compensatory picks, because they love as many picks as they can possibly get. So I think that's why they left those guys out there. And I think with Daniel Falele, that he has the potential to be another one. And then especially when you slap Pro Bowl on somebody's name, like Danny Falele, like you could say, hey, this is a Pro Bowler. And I remember, I don't know if you remember, it was like a week before free agency. And John Harbaugh he was being interviewed. I forgot where he was at, but he was talking up Brandon Stevens. He was like, yeah, Brandon Stevens, hey, we might even be able to bring Brandon Stevens back because he can play corner, he can play dime corner. And I know a lot of Ravens fans got upset. They were like, oh, Harbaugh, what are you talking about? Don't bring Brandon Stevens back. Da, 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 da. But I think that was just him trying to boost Brandon Stevens' market. So other teams could feel like, oh, Ravens might try to keep him. You know what? We got to offer him a real good deal so he can leave. And it ended up happening. He went to the Jets, got a nice deal, and that will be a comp pick for the Baltimore Ravens. So as far as Voorhees, though, yeah, Voorhees and Ben Cleveland, they got to bring in more. I think right now, obviously, it would be Voorhees' job to lose right here, right now. But the draft, we ain't even hit the draft yet. And so I think the draft will let us know about that. And I think they definitely will draft the guard. Probably in some later rounds, because I feel like that's a spot where you could draft somebody early, but then at the same time, you can still find some plug-and-play guys later on in the draft, and especially because whatever guard you end up putting there at the left guard spot, their job should be made a lot easier. One, because they're playing inside, but then two, because to their left is Ronnie Stanley, and to their right is Tyler Linderbaum. So you have two really, really good players. And we know that an offensive line is like, it's a chain. And if there's a weak link on that chain, then yeah, it could break. But if the stronger that the links are that hold that chain together, the better that it is. So with Tyler Linderbaum, with Ronnie Stanley, or Roger Rosengarten, those are amazing players. With Daniel Falele, like you did mention, I agree. I think he did improve over the year, still got some strides to make, but like you said, it was his very first year starting at right guard. That's a big switch for a big boy. But he is, I do think he's just not even penciled in. I think he's like sharpied in to be the starter at right guard with how much the Ravens they heap a lot of praise on him. But yeah, I think the only spot where there's going to be some competition is at left guard between Andrew Voorhees. Not really Ben Cleveland. I think he'll sort of be just a backup guy. But yeah, whoever else they bring in, whether it's through the draft or free agency, or actually both.
Yeah, you made a point that stuck out to me, that you think the Ravens played the long game with keeping McCary at left guard for a comp pick. Same with Brandon Stevens. And I don't disagree at all. It's kind of like a frustrating thing, though, in a way, because why wouldn't you, with the team we have? I mean, let's be real. This roster's stacked. You know what I mean? Like, this is not one of the, on paper at least, like one of the best Ravens teams we've ever seen in our life. And it's frustrating that you would be like, oh, we need that comp pick so bad that we're just going to let these guys play and not potentially go seek a better option, you know? And it's because I'm not arguing that the option was on the roster. Maybe Voorhees wasn't ready and McCary was a more consistent option. I get that. But that's not the option to go win a Super Bowl potentially. We got moved around in that Buffalo game. You know what I mean? And it's just frustrating if that's what their thought process was, that we wouldn't be more aggressive to stack the trenches and try to win every year we possibly can, because but we're going to blink and years are going to go by and we're not going to have Lamar anymore. Derrick Henry's not going to be here long term. Like,
it's sad to think about.
I know it definitely is, but that's what I'm saying. Like, it's not that the window is about to close. I still think we got a good stretch here, but why are we playing around with like, oh, we need a comp pick? Like, I forget the comp pick at this point. Like, let's go be aggressive. If we need to go sign someone in free agency that offsets a comp pick, but it strengthens our offensive line, then I feel like that's the move. I'd rather cancel out a 4th round comp pick and get a true starting left guard that we can rely on.
Yeah, I agree. The Ravens have shown a bit more of aggression this offseason, though. But by the way that they have been structuring these contracts, they've been using a lot of those void years. They did it for Ronnie Stanley. They did it for DeAndre Hopkins.
Wallace. I think everyone.
Tyler Wallace too.
Even on Marlins restructure, they added void years to clear his cap. So it's like about that. They're just almost every single move we've made this offseason has had void years on it.
Yeah, that's true, man. So I'm hoping that well, obviously know they got a lot more, not a lot more left, but they still got some moves left that they can make. I don't. It's not going to be 100%. All right, just the draft is going to be the last thing that the Baltimore Ravens do, and that's it. No, because that's not how it works. And we know, like for free agency, obviously the sexiest part of free agency is that first week where all these deals are flying around and left and right, and whatnot. But free agency, it really doesn't stop ever for the remainder of the football season. So free agency goes from March. This year started on March 12th, and it goes all the way up until the Super Bowl because teams are always changing. Guys unfortunately get hurt. Guys get cut. There's a lot of stuff. Rosters are always changing. So free agency really never stops. But for right here, right now, as far as during the off season, I'm hoping that all them void years and them sort of pushing money in the future so they can save a little bit more cash now. I'm hoping they do something significant. Where I got a dream that I've been sharing that I hope that it does go down. Maybe a little unrealistic, but that's okay. I'm very unrealistic and I ain't got a problem with it. But I would love if the Baltimore Ravens, because if they could get that true difference maker at pass rusher, like somebody like a consistent threat at pass rusher. Odafe Oweh, he been coming along, man. It took him a little bit, but he been getting better and better. Got his first double-digit sacks last season, which was great. So shout out to him. Kyle Vanoy, I think he's getting ready to be 34 soon, so getting a little up there. But he 12 and a half sacks last year, which is amazing.
Career, first Pro Bowl.
Oh yeah, that's crazy too. Crazy. With Nnamdi Madubuike. Now we knew I didn't expect him to get how much sacks did he get 2 years ago? Was it 13 or 12 and a half? I forget.
Yeah,
but
I think it was 13.
Yeah, I didn't expect him to get that this year, especially because when you get that new money, you get that bread. People know who you are now. Like you don't get paid all that money, and people are like, oh, that's just Nnamdi Madubuike. Oh, forget about him. No, you're gonna be getting more attention. So I didn't expect him to go crazy this year. But in my opinion, if we could get that crazy pass rusher,
Suggs, yeah,
then I think that could help this team. So because we haven't had that since a Terrell Suggs. Myles Garrett, obviously, he wasn't going to the Ravens. He re-signed with the Browns. Yeah. Max Crosby, that was one that I was hoping for, but he re-signed with the Raiders. Trey Hendrickson, he getting ready to re-sign with the Bengals any day now. TJ Watt obviously ain't going nowhere. They ain't letting him go nowhere. He getting ready to get a big deal any day now too. So I feel like the last guy left,
Micah,
who that's the last guy left.
Yeah.
So I would.
Oh yeah, I mean that is a dream, man.
Love it.
Yeah, that would change,
love it.
Everything.
But that's just my crazy thinking out loud, man. But wouldn't be mad at it at all, man.
Nah, we'll move on to the edge room here in a second. I want to shout out some of these super chats that we got flowing.
Oh yeah,
here. We got one from I might mispronounce this. Osmodius Thanatos.
Perfect. You ain't mispronounced nothing.
Oh, all right. McChickens with inflation. Shout out to Ingraven. Yes, shout out to Ingraven. Shout out to you, man. I appreciate that super chat. Inflation is going down, so we'll be all right. We'll be all right. We got one from T Money. Ryan, love seeing you doing lives now. That's super dope. Love the channel. Keep it up. Thank you, T Money. Appreciate all of you guys for tuning in for real. I agree, though. Let's go back to the edge room real quick because I want to expand on that a little bit. Mike has, I mean, obviously that would be absolutely insane. I would love nothing more than to get a pass rusher of that caliber. And there's not, like you just mentioned, you rattled off the names. There's not many guys even out there that are even potentially available, you know? So, and the Ravens would have to give up quite a bit to go get them.
Oh, yeah.
We're talking about multiple first-round picks, maybe another young rising player or something, whatever they end up getting it out. But it would be worth it regardless. Right now, our edge room after this season, so we just talked about Odafe Oweh, who had his best year and is getting better year after year. He's in his final year, though. We picked up his fifth-year option. He's not under contract. He's not going to be cheap either unless he has a bad year for whatever reason. But we know Ravens guys in contract years tend to go crazy. Like I'm expecting Odafe to beat the 10 sacks because We've seen it with Zadarius Smith in his contract year. We saw it with Matt Judon in his contract year. Even Matabike when there was money on the board. Like what happens? It's like a common theme that whenever somebody's about to be a free agent that's a pass rusher, they have a career year. And Odafe always not going to be cheap. Do you try and extend him now? Or are you just letting him play out this final year and try to negotiate next offseason? Or are you just moving on entirely and try to go in a different direction? We really don't have a lot of depth. I mean, you mentioned Kyle Van Noy. He's aging out, right? Like this could be his final year with the Ravens. We got David Ajabo, who just has not panned out. I was very surprised last year when Ajabo didn't really take a leap, couldn't stay on the field consistently at all. That was kind of shocking. I thought last year was Ajabo's year to kind of rise. We got Tavius Robinson. He plays a different role. I think he's more of a run defender, but our pass rush room, and I guess we got Adisa Isaac too. That's an unknown in my opinion. We'll see how that works out. But after this season, it's very thin, very questionable. What are you doing? Are you paying Odafe, or are you drafting one high and just moving on entirely, or what's your move if we can't get a Micah, obviously?
Yeah, Micah, that's a pipe dream. But as far as Odafe away, I don't think you pay him yet, because that could give him, and will give him even more motivation. Because you think about it, like think if maybe as Modis, maybe you might have heard my daughter or something. But if you working at a job and like you've been working at that job for the past 3-4 years and things been rolling, things been going cool, whatnot, you're like, all right, cool. But then your manager, your supervisor, either way, they tell you, hey, you actually due for a raise after this year. Then you ain't gonna be doing stuff the same no more. And especially if they tell you your raise depends on your performance. You're going to be going crazy with it. You're going to be putting in extra time. You're going to be putting in extra work and whatnot. So I understand why it's not even a coincidence that contract year, these players be going extra crazy. So with Odafe away, I wouldn't sign him to an extension right here, right now. I would wait just to hopefully see that consistency from Odafe away. I would wait just so, he feels that pressure. And he knows, like, hey, I'm right there. I'm so close to cashing in because he's on the 5th-year option, like you mentioned. And so he's getting a nice little raise this year. But after this year, he's going to get a way nicer raise from somebody. It could be from the Ravens. It could be from somebody else. But Odafe away is going to get paid from somebody. So I wouldn't sign him before the season. I would wait and just see how he performs, see how he does. And see if he falls into those Ravens edge guys that they might start off a little bit slow, but then that contract, they go wild with it. So that's what I would do with him.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's the safest play. It's probably the one that the Ravens want to do. I definitely think it's better just to kind of see it out. And we don't know who we're going to get in the draft, right? Like, let's say we hit a home run in the first round and land our future edge that we don't need to pay Odafe. We can ride out another rookie contract, and hopefully that person comes in and is more immediately productive, and we kind of knew that with Oweh, though. I mean, as soon as we drafted him, everything you heard was he's raw, he's a project a little bit, like, which is crazy for a first round project. His athletic tools are crazy, like off the charts. Like, he's a freak athletically, but it took him a couple years. It probably helped having Chuck Smith come in and coach him up. It took him a couple years to really hone the pass rush moves and get consistent. I mean, how many years were we almost seeing Odafe Oweh sacks? Like, he was like right there, so many times. So I think we could potentially draft an edge early. And that takes me to this next conversation. And it's about the draft. Are you going a certain position in the draft in your mind? Would you be targeting a certain position? Are you going best player available? What do you think is the most pressing needs for the Ravens in the first, 2 or 3 rounds? Because we have 11 picks, but most of them are later draft picks, and you're not going to find many people that are going to help us this season. It's rare. You know what I mean? We've knocked some 4th round picks out of the park. I think in 2022, we had like Isaiah Likely and some guys that that did help and contributed pretty quickly. But for the
Mm-hmm.
most part, the guys that are going to play are going to be that first 2 picks, first 3 picks, maybe if someone can stay healthy. So which positions do you think are kind of a must for the Ravens to hit in that first part of the draft?
One of them that we just finished talking about, as far as the edge room, you brought up Adolphia Wade last year, his contract, Kyle Vanoy last year, his contract, David Ajabo last year, his contract, and Adisa Isaac, question mark, Tavius Robinson, been solid, but we still don't know what he is like as a starter. So Ravens at pass rush, it's a lot of unknowns there, especially behind our top 2 guys. So I would definitely say edge, but then I know there's been a lot of conversation around the safety position, and that's a good conversation to have because obviously you got Kyle. I was about to say Kyle Vanoy. You got Kyle Hamilton.
Yeah.
Just baller. Now that's somebody who I ain't waiting to pay. Like,
yeah, I agree. Pay him right now. He probably wants to wait a little though.
Yeah, it's only going to go up. Exactly. But then you got Ardarius Washington. Now with Ardarius Washington, nice baller, love Ardarius Washington. But with him right now, he's in sort of a weird spot because the Ravens obviously didn't sign him to a contract extension. They put the
first right of refusal.
There we go.
Tender, yeah.
First right of refusal. There we go. I forgot what it's called. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
So another team has up until April 18th if they want to sign him to an offer sheet. So that could, and obviously that's right before the draft, like a week before the draft. So Ravens will know whether he's here or not. So that could change some things with the draft. But at the same time, when you think about it, like if the Ravens drafted a rookie safety, would they really want to rely heavily on him early in the season? And that's not something they typically do, even with Kyle Hamilton. Like, I remember him just being really, really raw early on. I remember him, well, not raw, he's just a little out of place. But then, because I remember that Dolphins game, that week 2 Dolphins game where we were blowing out the Dolphins and then they came back and oh boy. And Kyle Hamilton, he was a big part of that. But Kyle Hamilton, once he got locked in, it was like maybe a week or 2 after that, there was no looking back for Kyle Hamilton. Yeah. He ended up just being amazing from that point moving forward. So yeah, I guess it is a possibility that they could take a safety early on and he could have some serious responsibility, especially depending on what happens with Ardarius Washington. But if Ardarius Washington stays, that will give you more flexibility, obviously, with what you do, especially at the safety position. Like if you have Kyle Hamilton or Ardarius Washington, you bring in a safety, then you could have that safety move around, sort of rotate with Kyle Hamilton. You can have Kyle Hamilton around the box a bit more. You could have him drop back. You could have the safety around the box more, depending on who you draft. You could just have him doing a lot of different things. So if I'm the Baltimore Ravens right now, the positions that I'll be looking at probably for first, or that position I would be expecting them to draft right here, right now, or where the team is, would be either edge, safety, or even a guard. Mm-hmm. Because with Voorhees, yeah, we talked about that earlier. Voorhees, still a lot of unknown. He started a couple of games last year. Then he got hurt, and they never gave him his job back. But then with Ben Cleveland, that's obviously not going to be a long-term solution for them. And especially
Lele's a free agent, so like that guard might be needed.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. So yeah, I think that could be another position that they look at would be guard, because it never hurts to upgrade your offensive line. And like, hey, we got Lamar Jackson, the best quarterback in the game. So you want him to be protected. Now, one thing with that, with Lamar Jackson, we love the favorite play from last year. Lamar Jackson snaps the ball. He fumbled it. It's like, oh, man, hey, what's going on? Picks it up, scrambles around, 2 stiff arms, throw to Isaiah Likely, boom, touchdown. And then, of course, we love the plays of Lamar. He snapped the ball, looking, might get a little pressure, make somebody miss, make somebody else miss, throw the ball downfield, touchdown, big play, whatever. But when talking about offensive line, you want your offensive line to be the best that you can make it, because you don't want to have to depend on the scramble drill. You don't want it to be scramble drill or bust. You don't want it to be, all right, Lamar got to make a bunch of defenders miss every single play, or else everything just falls apart. No, you want some scripted stuff. You want some on-time stuff and whatnot. It don't got to be all this craziness or nothing. So a lot of the craziness that Lamar does is because the offensive line, they weren't holding up blocks a lot of the times. So that's why when it comes to upgrading the offensive line, you can never do enough there. And that goes for defensive line too. Like Eagles, I saw somebody talking about it earlier. Like, not that Eagles even gave us the blueprint. They say Eagles gave us a reminder. They said it's always been a blueprint to build through the trenches, but Eagles just gave us a nice reminder because they did it in dominant fashion. Like, and they were crazy with, like, and we as Ravens fans, we saw it firsthand when we played the Eagles.
Yep.
Because they made
one of the only teams that like moved us and beat us like without us making a lot of mistakes, missed field goals or turnovers or whatever. And like the Eagles beat us.
They really did, man. That was like, I think that might have been the most like convincing loss of the Baltimore Ravens season last year. Because we lost 5 games. But even in that Eagles game, like I know Lamar, he threw a touchdown like with like 9 seconds left, something like that. But yeah, that Eagles game, like we was getting ready to lose that by 2 scores until that like last second score by Lamar. I forgot who it was to. But yeah, they beat us. They beat us on both sides of the ball. Saquon was running like crazy, and that defense was just moving us around. So again, offensive line, it can never be good enough. You always want to upgrade there. You always want to look for the best of the best there if you can get it, because it makes such a big difference. And obviously, your 3 positions, your left tackle, center, and right tackle, those are all set. And right guard is set too. So left guard, that's the next spot that you can really do an upgrade to.
Yeah, completely agree. I think guard has to be a priority in the early rounds. Also, edge, like you said, we just talked about how much change we're probably going to have at edge. So I would go, I'd go best player available, not overall, but for out of those positions, you know, like who's the best guard, who's the best edge still there at 27. Maybe and it's a deep D tackle class. So maybe if there's a freak that falls, because we do, you know, we got to keep building the trenches up on the defensive side of the ball too. We just lost Michael Pierce, so it wouldn't hurt to add another nose tackle. But when it comes to like the first round, my dream is to get that elite edge if we can find them, or bring in a guard who's going to push Voorhees. Like whether that guard, I mean, I guess if you draft a guard in the first round, they probably should start. But at least to push everyone, you know. And then Falele, if he ends up, let's say he doesn't have a phenomenal year and the Ravens end up moving on, because like I said, he's a free agent, then we need another guard. We're going to need another guard. You know what I mean? So it's not like this line is, it's not like this line is set to just grow together for years. I think 3 of them are, but the guards are very unsettled. So I think it's crucial to build the trenches up, both sides of the ball, you know, add to the interior on the defense as well. And then we'll probably end up drafting a corner and a safety. I don't know if our Darius, we go through these contract dances with our Darius like every time he's up for it. I don't know if the Ravens want to commit long term. That's kind of like how I'm reading through this. Like, I'm not sure if they're, not that they think he's bad. I just think that they're not sold on committing long term, maybe due to his injury history, maybe due to his size. I don't know. He plays like a pit bull. I'm not that worried about his size. Like, he's out here hitting, causing turnovers. Last year was a breakout year. I think that first right of refusal is only $3 million. So like, they're not really showing him a lot of love. You know what I mean? Because I'm sure, and I saw him tweet out bet. Like, I know he probably talked to EDC and was like, dang, man, like they're not committing like I think they should. So safety is another big option moving forward. Maybe not for this year. We don't necessarily need to rely on a top safety to change our defense this year. If we draft a top safety, it would probably be in a rotation. And which, like you said, to your point earlier about Kyle Hamilton and even Nate Wiggins last year, the Ravens don't ever really play their young guys a ton immediately. You know, like Nate Wiggins wasn't a full-time outside starter until a little bit later in the season. And then as the season went on, he kept really going. And now he's probably, I think Zach Orr just said in the lounge interview, he's 100% snap guy now. But it took a year. So I don't think the Ravens are going to rely on anybody really, especially in the secondary, to come in immediately and take over. But it wouldn't be a bad idea to get a safety if they do plan on moving all away from a Darius Washington, because if he ends up getting that 1 year, $3 million or whatever, somebody offers him a low contract, then we still don't have a safety next year moving forward. So like there's still a lot of holes to fill. Like, I'm looking at 2026, you know what I mean? Like there's still a lot of holes to fill moving forward next year. I think we got a pretty great team right now, but yeah, I don't know, just venting my draft thoughts, honestly. But
Oh no, you're good. Something that you talked about with Darius Washington, like where it just does seem like there is a lack of belief and commitment from the Baltimore Ravens towards Darius Washington, because with that right of first refusal or first right of refusal, whichever it is, I keep forgetting. But
yeah, first
with
right.
that, they'll appreciate it. So first right of refusal, they what they have him set up to is, yeah, it's like 2 or 3 mils. It's super cheap, but they have those tenders where if you tender a player at like a second round tender,
Yeah, it's
then
5 mil.
if they sign to an offer sheet with another team and they go to that team, then you will get a second round pick back.
Yep.
They could have put that on our days
For
but they said
5
no.
million, but they didn't want to pay him 5. Yeah.
Right. So they put where if somebody else signs Darius Washington to an offer sheet and he goes to that team, Ravens get nothing.
Well, we get to decide if we want to match it.
Yeah, so, they can match it.
Yeah. But if it's too much, like let's say another team offers them 5, 6, 7 million, we might just lose them.
Yeah, and they will lose them for nothing.
Yeah.
So they they got the right to match the offer, but if they don't, then he will be going and you will literally get nothing back. So that really showed when I saw that, I was like, oh, the Ravens, like they really they are either very confident that no team is going to sign him to something, or they're very confident that they will match it, whatever. But them just being that risky with a starter at the safety position, that kind of does show me like, oh yeah, they like Darius Washington, but it seemed like they don't love Darius Washington like that. Again, obviously, like we talked about earlier, it is a business, so you got to make business decisions and whatnot. But it just does not seem like there's that commitment from them to Darius Washington as of right now.
Yeah, I agree. So safety becomes another need then in the draft at some point. Yeah. All right, man. Well, we're coming up on an hour here. You got anything else on your mind? Anything you want to talk about or say?
Hey, the Ravens just need to win, man. That's it. They need to win. Stop playing these games. Just
no turnover.
Like they done had great enough teams the past 2 years to win the Super Bowl, but they keep coming up short. And it's so frustrating to see as a fan. It's like an annual letdown for us. We get so hyped, we get so invested, we really believe in this team. Like, oh yeah, they got it. They're gonna do it. We saw Derrick Henry going for 1,900 yards. Saw Lamar Jackson with a crazy season, 41-4 ratio. Like that's crazy, man. That don't make no kind of sense, man. We saw Marlon Humphrey. Oh boy, don't get started on that. But yeah, man. But yeah, and we saw this team. They started 0-2. They started 0-2, and for the rest of the season, regular season, they only lost 3 more games, and that's pretty good. Because to start 0-2 and like you looking like you're down in the dumps, but they were able to climb out of that and finish the season out with 12-5. So they did their thing, and they put themselves in a nice position. Obviously, took care of business against the Steelers at home in that playoff game, and then against the Bills. Yeah, we know what happened, but they just got to finish, man. They got to finish. As far as Eric DeCosta, I said this after the 2023 season. Eric DeCosta, that's when he earned my trust. Not in 2019 when he first became the GM, not in 2020, not in 2021 or 22. It was in 2023 where Eric DeCosta earned my trust, because that's when he got Lamar signed, and that's when he brought in Jadeveon Clowney, Odell Beckham, and he really built a very, very nice team. Brought in Todd Monken, and that obviously changed so much with the Baltimore Ravens, but they have everything that they need. They got everything that they need. Obviously, they got to get some more pieces and whatnot. But as far as the core of Baltimore Ravens, as far as the offensive coordinator, you got Monken. That offense has been growing. The defensive coordinator, you got Zach Oil. It was a rough start, but he got things going, and that should be, he should be good to go moving forward. John Harbaugh obviously got plenty of experience. I know there's a lot of different opinions with that one, but as far as you look at the personnel, your quarterback, you got the best quarterback in the game. Your running back, you got one of the best running backs in the game. You got a fullback who leads the way for that running back. Your offensive line, good left tackle, good center, good right tackle, right guard. Okay, he got some improvement to making left guard. We'll see. But the offensive line, they got to show that up. But then at tight ends, they got 2 really, really good tight ends. Then at wide receiver, your wide receivers, they did their thing last year. Now you added DeAndre Hopkins to that. You brought Tylan Wallace back. You could still add even more to it. And this is a pass-friendly team. The offense is wide receiver friendly now. It wasn't like that before. And that's crazy to say for Ravens offense. Then you look at the defensive side of the ball and look at the core pieces that we got. Nnamdi Madubuike, you got a Roquan Smith, you got a Marlon Humphrey, Nate Wiggins, you got a Kyle Hamilton. So your core guys are really good. And then still this year, at least you got a Dauphin Wade. This year, at least maybe you got Darius Washington. But your core of your team, the main people on your team that you know are going to be here for years to come, they're really, really good. So you obviously just got to add around to them. But Ravens, just their biggest thing, it should have been their biggest thing 2 years ago, should have been their biggest thing last year. They got to finish. They got to finish because they've had everything in place in order to finish. Now it's just a matter of getting the job done.
Yeah, I agree, man. We got to get it done. The team is too good. I'm telling you, if we stack the trenches up, though, if we can get some incredible guard play, get a pass rusher, it's going to be different. This offense won't get moved around. We lose games when we get moved around. You know what I mean? Like we've lost to talented fronts. Not that the Bills had some insane front, but regardless, we got moved around. So whether that's us not wanting it as bad or whatever, we got moved around. That causes turnovers. And I think if we build those trenches up and hold on to the ball, which obviously easier said than done. It's not like they don't want to hold on to the ball, but it is what it is. They made some crucial mistakes. We win that Buffalo game if we don't turn the ball over 3 times.
Oh, yeah.
We're right there, man. We are right there.
And that's one more thing, too.
Yeah.
That's one of the most frustrating things about these Ravens is you look at the AFC Championship 2 years ago against the Chiefs. There was an interception in the end zone where Lamar was throwing at Isaiah Likely. It should have been pass interference, but it is what it is. But then there was the Zay Flowers fumble on the 1 yard line. So you look at those 2 turnovers. The Ravens, they lost that game by 7 points?
7, yeah.
So it was 1-score game.
Scored 10. That offense scored 10 points.
Yeah, that's insane, man. So then you look at last year against the Bills. There was the Lamar fumble. There was the interception. There was the Mark Andrews fumble. Then there was also the Mark Andrews drop 2-point conversion. Then there was also where they got to the 2 yard line where Lamar threw that bomb to Rashad Bateman. They got to the 2 yard line and they ended up having to kick a field goal. But,
yeah, come on, man.
So it's like you look at all of those things that happened in that game, all of those bad plays, all of those turnovers, all of those negative plays, and they lost the game by 2 points. That's what's so frustrating about the Ravens. The Ravens, they will be in these games. They'll be making all these crazy negative plays, all these bad turnovers, but they'll still be in these games. So what makes it frustrating is that we just imagine if one of those turnovers got taken away or 2 of those turnovers didn't happen, like how much the Ravens could win by, or just them winning the game in general. And it's like, this team, they're right there. They are right there, but they just keep coming up short. So Ravens, obviously the turnovers, they got to clean that up big time. And that's really the key, in my opinion, cleaning up the turnovers. And also, if the defense, it was not the defense's fault why the Ravens lost last year, but if they could start forcing some turnovers and some clutch moments, that'd be nice too.
I think they will. I think they'll get off to a faster start, having the coaching staff, the continuity with the coaching staff of Orr coming back. I mean, last year we didn't really know exactly right away what the issue was, but as soon as they switched those safeties around, everything changed. You know what I mean? And so we shouldn't have that issue. Zach Orr's not going to have as much growing pains. And we added, I mean, you got 2 defensive coordinators on the staff, Chuck Pagano, Dean Pease.
Oh yeah.
We got elite defensive minds, that have been around football 3 times as long as Orr. So I definitely I think the defense can get off to a faster start. I think they can force a lot more turnovers. Add an edge for sure. We need to upgrade there, but I think it's what you said, man. Just finishing, not turning the ball over, not making those dumb mistakes. And it's easier said than done, because how do you fix that in the moment? It's not like the Ravens can't hold on to the ball or something. Like Lamar had 4 interceptions all season. And then has a real bad mistake early in the Buffalo game. And like you said, we overcome all those mistakes too to almost win the games. But if we just didn't make, maybe we can make one mistake, but like if we just didn't make as many mistakes,
right,
we win by a possession or two. You know what I mean? And we're cruising to the Super Bowl because this is the most stacked Ravens team we've really ever seen. Like we have to finish. We have to finish, man.
And you know what makes it even worse? I remember Tom Brady, he talked about it on a podcast that he did after the Ravens and Bills game, and it was a really, really good point. When you watch that game, the Bills, their offense, extremely conservative. Wasn't doing anything crazy. Wasn't really going down the field too often. There was that one where they went down the field and there was that terrible pass interference call that they called on Tre'Davious White, where Keon Coleman actually pushed Tre'Davious White. Should have been OPI, but they called DPI. It was the craziest thing. But the Bills' offense is super conservative. But what Tom Brady was talking about, he said with the Bills, they just waited. They sat back and waited for the Ravens to make the mistakes. They waited for the Ravens to kill themselves. They just waited. And that's exactly what ended up happening. The Bills ain't had to force nothing. They weren't super aggressive on offense or defense, but all they had to do was sit back and wait because the Ravens did what the Ravens do.
You think they can learn from this though? Like how many times does it take to learn from it? You know, like how many times do you have to keep screwing up in big moments to be like, all right, lock in?
I agree. And even though, in my opinion, it was not his fault why the Baltimore Ravens lost the playoff game to the Bills last year. That's why, because you said how much time is going to take for them to learn. This is why I do love the idea. We'll see if it happens, but I do love the idea of the Baltimore Ravens not signing John Harbaugh to a contract extension.
This is his final year, right?
Yeah, like David Ajabo, Adolphe Wade, Kyle Benoit, all of it. He's in his last year too. So we know with John Harbaugh, when that pressure's on, when his back's against the wall, that's when John Harbaugh be pulling out some stuff, man. Like go back to 2018. There was all them reports that came out. Oh, the Ravens and John Harbaugh, they mutually agreed to part ways at the end of the season. So I'm thinking, all right, well, I guess that's a wrap. Wonder who our new coach is going to be. But John Harbaugh said, you know what? Let me try this one last thing. Lamar, you're going to be out there. And I really do believe that with Joe Flacco, because all year from the beginning, they kept putting Lamar out there on these plays. They kept putting him out there in the Wildcat, all these different plays. Yeah. So they really wanted Lamar Jackson on the field. They really, really did. But then, and I think when Stephon Tuitt from the Steelers, he hit Joe Flacco and that injured him, they said, oh, Joe Flacco got a hip injury. I think they were not waiting for Flacco to get hurt. But in my opinion, it's just me. But I think that they sort of exaggerated Joe Flacco's injury a bit just to make it a smoother transition to Lamar Jackson. So he could really be out there. They could be like, all right, this is the starter, and so on and so forth. Because you could all year, the gadget plays, like you said, they wanted Lamar Jackson to be on the field because they knew that he was a problem somehow, some way. So they try to figure out all these different ways. How can we get Lamar out on the field? How can we get Lamar playing, even though Joe Flacco's our starter? But then when they had that opportunity, they said, all right, we're going to roll with Lamar. And then obviously the rest is history. But with John Harbaugh, back to him with his back against the wall, it's like, oh, that's what really brings the best out of him. Now we just need the Ravens to have that mentality when they're in the playoffs because their backs are literally against the wall because it's when to go home. But that's, again, another reason why I would love for him to just ride out this last year without a contract extension.
Me too.
Just to see. Because, and on top of that, it's like, all right, I know a lot of people say, oh, the grass it's not always greener. And look, if John Harbaugh plays out this final year, it's a win-win, in my opinion, because Ravens win the Super Bowl. Okay, you sign them to a 5-year contract, whatever. But if Ravens don't make the Super Bowl, you can move on peacefully. Yeah, you ain't got to be like, all right, hey, we fired John Harbaugh. No. His contract ran out. So it looks good on it. You ain't got to make up some, we mutually agreed to part. No, his contract ran out.
Yeah.
And that would be it. So you could find somebody else. And I really do feel like, think about this too. You got Lamar Jackson. You got, well, we'll see if they get Derrick Henry after this year. But you got, say, Flower Shot. We'll see about Mark Andrews, Isaiah. Like, we'll see what decision they make. But again, like Lamar Jackson, you got a Roquan Smith, Kyle Hamilton, they still got to pay him. Linderbaum, they still got to pay him. But with the core that you could have, it would be extremely hard for another coach to come in and fail
with the Ravens, with the team that they have. It would be I feel like a coach would have to go way out of his way in order to fail with the Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah.
It would be really, really tough. Because you have some really, really, really good and great players. So again, I know we don't know what life is like without a John Harbaugh. And again, I ain't saying, oh, fire Harbaugh, get rid of him, fire Harbaugh. But I am saying, like, hey, leave everything as is. Don't sign him to a contract extension. Just let him play it out and see how things go. So we'll see what happens.
No, I love that point, man. That is an incredible point of let's just let it play out. And I mean, we'll see. Obviously, next week we could see a Harbaugh extension. Who knows? But I'm just saying, like, hopefully that's Bisciotti's thinking too. You know what I mean? Like, all right, he's been here. I think Harbaugh's been here 17 years. Like,
2008. So yeah.
So I mean, like you said, the roster is plenty good enough, you know, and you could a couple years ago you could blame Greg Roman for holding the offense back a little bit, which was a Harbaugh hire though. So I mean, like, some blame goes both ways. And then and I'm not a fire Harbaugh guy either. Like, I'm not out here screaming for Harbaugh to be fired because I do think he does a good job hiring other coaches, like bringing in a Monken or even making that tough transition to Zach Orr. I think that's going to end up paying off. I know it was a little rocky at first, but I do think Harbaugh makes incredible hires and is, you know, he's a player's coach in the fact of, like, he lets the players be themselves. He keeps the locker room together. I do think he's a good coach in that regard. He's not a big, like, X's and O's play calling guy, but I don't know if just firing Harbaugh answers everything. But I'm with you. Let's just let this last year, the contract, play out, because I think there's some pressure there. And sometimes pressure makes diamonds. Sometimes that forces you to lock into a different level and be like, hey, man, like, I might be gone. If this doesn't work out, if we don't go to the Super Bowl, I might be gone. And that's obviously, you know, barring any injuries or anything, any crazy injuries, because that could be an excuse. But if we got a fully healthy team headed into the playoffs again, just like we had last year with this roster, there's just no excuse not to go all the way. So I'm totally with you. I think that's an incredible point. I wasn't even thinking about him being in the final year that much. I've thought about it, but not about, like, the pressure standpoint of it. You know, I think that's I think that's huge, man. But anything else you got on your mind, man, or should we get out of here?
No, man. I'm just looking at the comment section.
yeah, there's a lot.
It made some good points. They talked about Harbaugh and EDC being neighbors, so they say, "Oh yeah, Harbaugh definitely ain't going nowhere."
Does Eric DaCosta make that decision though? Isn't that a Bisciotti at the end of the day? Like, wouldn't that be his call if he's like, "Hey, EDC, you can stay the GM, but we got to go a different direction at head coach"?
It is, but
just the tightness of them all. You think they're just gonna want to stay together? I get that. I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah, because it's like it's almost like, and now I did see somebody say it. They said, "Oh, Harbaugh he gonna end up winning the Super Bowl and he gonna get a 10-year lifetime contract extension. Y'all gonna like it." That's why I say, hey, that's why I say it's a win-win. If Ravens win a Super Bowl,
extend them. I'm good with it.
That'd be great. That'd be just fine. But yeah, I feel like over the years, the family environment of the Baltimore Ravens, it is a great thing. But it's almost like a gift and a curse,
right?
Because it's great because there's that camaraderie, it's the bond, the closeness and whatnot that creates a better environment for a better work environment and whatnot. But then at the same time, I feel like if it's such a family environment, then that can make it tough to make the tough decisions. So we're gonna, and again, like, that is a good point about them being neighbors. That's real right there. Some people they joking about it, but that's real. That's a fact. We remember in 2020 when they made the video, they looking over the fence and all that during COVID and whatnot. Okay, well, so we'll see, man. But again, hopefully it plays out to a great situation. And hopefully Ravens do win the Super Bowl. Hopefully John Harbaugh gets a contract extension after this year. And that means the Ravens, they ended up winning the Super Bowl. I would have no problem with it. I'd be cheering for Harbaugh with a contract extension.
Me too.
The Ravens holding up a third trophy. Oh, yeah, great. Awesome.
100%.
But we'll see how it shakes out, man.
Yeah, 100%, man. Well, I appreciate you stopping by, Ingraven, man. It was good stopping it up with you. Keep grinding. Keep bringing value to the Ravens community as you've been doing for a long, long time. And no,
I appreciate you, man.
Yeah, man, no doubt.
Appreciate you. Anytime, man. Anytime we want to do this, just let me know. I got to bring you on again because that was a lot of fun when I had you on last year.
Yeah,
I forgot what we covered, but yeah, man, I appreciate you. I appreciate your time.
Yeah,
it was a minute ago, and it's too long ago, so we got to run it back soon, man.
Yeah, no doubt. And thank you guys, all you guys, for tuning in, man. And everyone who's been sending super chats and chopping it up in the chat. Appreciate you guys. And have a blessed day. Have a great night. And we'll talk to you guys soon.
Ravens flock. The flock rundown is the place to be.
Motionless brainwaves attempt to swim their way to sense, can't tame the